You walked through the doors of the mall, and three things hit your nose at the same time, each one pulling you in a different direction. Caramel popcorn from the Karmelkorn shop, halfway down the corridor. Baking pretzels from Hot Sam near the fountain. And that sweet, cold orange cloud from the Orange Julius stand by the escalator. Those three smells together were the mall. If you could bottle them, you would have 1978 in a jar. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. You remember the Orange Julius? Not just the taste, but the stand. A little counter with a pyramid of real oranges stacked behind the glass, a teenager in a paper hat running a blender, and the sound of that blender cutting through the noise of the mall like a small engine. You walked up and you said, "Give me an Orange Julius," and the kid made it right in front of you. Orange juice and ice and sugar and something else that made it foamy and sweet and cold in a way that no other drink in any other place has ever been. You drank it through a straw, the foam stuck to your upper lip, and you carried it with you from store to store. By the time you got to Sears, the cup was empty and you were already thinking about getting another one on the way out. That drink was invented in 1926 by a man named Julius Freed in Los Angeles, who figured out how to make orange juice less acidic by blending it with ice and powdered egg whites. His customers loved it so much they started lining up at his stand shouting, "Give me an Orange Julius!" And the name stuck. By the 1960s, there were 400 Orange Julius locations across America. 400. It was named the official drink of the 1964 World's Fair, and then Dairy Queen bought it in 1987, and one by one the standalone shops disappeared, and by 2018 every single Orange Julius in America was gone. The drink still exists at some Dairy Queen locations, but the stand is gone. The pyramid of oranges is gone. The kid in the paper hat is gone. The faux AM on your lip walking through the mall on a Saturday afternoon is gone. And people who have not had one in 30 years can close their eyes right now and taste it. The Hot Sam pretzel. You did not decide to get a Hot Sam pretzel. The pretzel decided for you. You were walking past and the smell reached out and grabbed you by the collar and you could not keep walking. Warm dough and salt, and something yeasty and golden that filled the entire corridor, and you followed it like a cartoon character floating toward a pie on a windowsill. The first Hot Sam opened in 1966 in the Livonia Mall outside Detroit, and it was the first pretzel chain that was born inside a mall. Not a restaurant that moved into a mall, a business that could only exist because the mall existed. Bavarian-style soft pretzels, baked in rotating ovens for 15 minutes and served hot. You could get them plain with salt, or dipped in mustard, or completely submerged in nacho cheese so thick and yellow that it dripped off the sides and onto your fingers. You licked your fingers in the middle of a shopping mall and nobody judged you because everyone else was doing the same thing. By the mid-1980s, there were 175 Hot Sams in malls across the country. Then Mrs. Fields bought the chain and turned them all into Pretzel Time and then Pretzel Maker, and the name disappeared. That Livonia Mall where the first one opened is empty now, but if you walk into any mall that still has a pretzel shop and you smell that warm dough and salt, you are not smelling Auntie Anne's. You are smelling 1979. You are smelling Hot Sam. You are smelling the mall the way it used to be, when every corridor had a smell that belonged to it and you navigated by your nose. And the Karmelkorn, caramel popcorn in a paper bag. The shop was narrow and deep. The popcorn popped behind the counter, and the caramel bubbled in a copper kettle. The smell was so sweet and so warm, it could reach you from 2 stores away. Karmelkorn started in 1929 in Casper, Wyoming, and it survived the Great Depression and 2 world wars. When the malls came, it found its home. By the 1980s, there were 270 Karmelkorn shops in 43 states. You bought a bag and you ate it while you walked. The caramel stuck to your teeth, your fingers were sticky, your mother handed you a napkin and you used it. Then you reached into the bag again because that popcorn was not going to eat itself. Some shops sold cheddar popcorn, butter popcorn, and kettle corn, but the caramel was the one. The caramel was the reason you walked in. When Dairy Queen bought Karmelkorn and folded it into their triple treat shops with Orange Julius, the smell changed. The shops got smaller. The copper kettle disappeared. Then the shops disappeared too. You can still order Karmelkorn online from a few places in Nebraska, but it is not the same. Ordering popcorn online is not the same as walking past a narrow shop in a mall and having that smell stop you in your tracks and reaching into a warm paper bag while your mother looked at shoes 3 stores down. The mall was alive and loud and sweet. Those 3, Orange Julius and Hot Sam and Karmelkorn, those were the 3 pillars of the mall. Not the department stores, not the clothing shops, not the jewelry counters. The smell of the mall was those 3. And when they disappeared, the mall stopped smelling like anything at all. That is when people stopped coming. And the Sbarro. Every food court in every mall in America had a Sbarro. The giant slices of pizza sat behind the glass, on metal trays under heat lamps. The cheese had been sitting there for 20 minutes, and it had formed that skin on top that cracked when you folded the slice. The sauce was too sweet, the crust was too thick, and none of that mattered because you were 14 and you had $5. A Sbarro slice cost $1.75, which left you enough for a drink and maybe a cookie from the original cookie company 2 counters down. That cookie place. The smell of warm, fresh-baked chocolate chip cookies that competed with Karmelkorn for dominance of the corridor. The original cookie company opened in 1977 and grew into a nationwide chain and fought Mrs. Fields for every mall in the country and lost. Mrs. Fields bought them in the late 1990s, absorbed them, and the name vanished. Now there is only Mrs. Fields, and the smell is not the same. You know it is not the same, even if you cannot explain why. And Bresler's 33 flavors. The ice cream shop that tried to beat Baskin-Robbins by offering 2 more flavors. 33 instead of 31. That was the pitch. That was the entire marketing strategy. We have more flavors than the other guy. It worked for decades. 400 locations in malls across America. Then the founder died in 1985. The chain was sold and sold again, and by 2007 it was gone. Every Bresler's in America melted away and left nothing behind except the memory of a waffle cone on a Saturday afternoon in a food court chair with the tray still on the table and your mother saying, "We need to go," and you saying 1 more minute because you were not done and you were never going to be done because that ice cream was the only thing keeping you in that chair. The moment it was gone, you had to go back to the car, and Saturday at the mall was over. But the food was only half of it. The other half was the people. The people who worked in the mall when the mall was the center of your town. You remember the woman at the perfume counter? She was the first person you saw when you walked into the department store because the perfume counter was always at the entrance. Always. She stood behind that glass case full of bottles. She had a small spray bottle in her hand, and she aimed it at your wrist before you could say, "No, thank you." Suddenly, you smelled like something French and expensive, and your mother stopped and said, "What is that?" The woman said, "It is the new one from so-and-so," and your mother said, "Spray me too." They stood there for 5 minutes talking about perfume. While you wandered toward the escalator, that woman, that job, spraying perfume on the wrists of strangers, she knew every scent in that case by heart. She knew which ones lasted and which ones faded. She knew which ones your mother would like and which ones your grandmother already wore. She was the gatekeeper of the department store, and you had to pass her to get inside. She smelled incredible, and she always smiled. That job does not exist anymore. Not really. There are test strips now. There are sample bottles chained to the shelf, but the woman with the spray bottle, who made your wrists smell like Paris on a Tuesday afternoon in Ohio, is gone. And the elevator operator. If the department store was big enough, it had an elevator. And if the elevator was old enough, it had a person running it. A woman in a uniform with white gloves who pulled a brass handle and said, "Second floor, ladies wear handbags and fine jewelry. Third floor, children's furniture and appliances." She knew every floor by heart. She stopped that elevator level with the landing without looking, and when the doors opened, she stepped aside and held her hand out as if she were presenting you with a gift, and the gift was the third floor. There were 90,000 elevator operators in America at the peak, people whose job was to take you from one floor to another and announce what was there when you arrived. By 1959, more than 90% of new elevators were automatic, and those people disappeared, and the elevator became just a box that moved, and nobody announced anything, and nobody wore white gloves, and nobody made the third floor feel like an arrival. The shoe salesman. You sat in a chair, and a man in a tie kneeled in front of you. He placed your foot on a metal device called a brannock, and he measured the length, the width, and the arch. He wrote the numbers down on a little pad, and he disappeared into the back room. He came out with 3 boxes stacked in his arms. He kneeled again, opened the first box, and slid the shoe onto your foot. He pressed his thumb against the toe to feel if there was room. He looked up at you and asked, "How does that feel?" You said, "Fine," even though it pinched a little because you were 8 and you did not know that shoes were supposed to be comfortable. He tried another pair. He laced them up for you. He had you walk across the carpet. He watched your feet, and he said, "Those are the ones." A grown man in a dress shirt and tie, on his knees on the floor of a shoe store, fitting shoes on an 8-year-old child like it was the most important thing he would do that day. And it was, because your mother was buying 1 pair of shoes, and those shoes had to last the whole year. If they did not fit right, she would be back, and he would have to do it again. He did not want to do it again, so he got it right the first time. That man, that patience, that care. You pick your own shoes now off a rack in a warehouse store, and nobody kneels and nobody measures and nobody asks, "How does that feel?" The shoes last 4 months instead of a year. And the gift wrap department at Christmas, a whole section of the store dedicated to wrapping presents. Women behind a long counter with rolls of paper in every color and ribbons in silver and gold, scissors that curled the ribbon when you pulled them across. They wrapped your present so perfectly that the corners were sharp, the bow was symmetrical, and the paper did not have a single wrinkle. You almost did not want to open it on Christmas morning because unwrapping it meant destroying something beautiful. Your mother handed them a box. They measured the paper with their eyes, cut it in one clean motion, folded it, taped it, tied the ribbon, curled it, and handed it back. It looked like it belonged in a magazine. That was a skill. That was a craft. That was a woman who had been wrapping presents in that department store for 20 Christmases. She could wrap a basketball if you asked her to. Now you get a gift bag, a piece of tissue paper, and the bag costs $4. The people who made the mall what it was did not own the stores. They worked in them. They stood behind counters for 8 hours and smiled at strangers and sprayed perfume on wrists and measured feet and wrapped presents and blended orange juice and baked pretzels and scooped ice cream and announced floors and carried boxes and answered the same questions 100 times a day. They were teenagers working their first job and women in their 50s who had been there since the store opened, and men in ties who kneeled on carpet all day and went home with sore knees and never complained. They were the mall, not the building, not the stores, not the fountain or the escalator or the parking lot, the people. And when the mall started dying, it was not the stores that disappeared first. It was the people. The Orange Julius kid was replaced by a machine. The elevator operator was replaced by a button. The perfume woman was replaced by a card you scratch and sniff. The shoe salesman was replaced by a mirror and a rack. The gift wrapper was replaced by a bag. One by one, the people left and the mall got quieter and emptier, and the smells faded, and the building that used to be the loudest, most alive place in your town became a corridor with closed gates and brown paper over the windows, and the echo of your own footsteps and nothing else. If you remember the people who made the mall what it was, tell me about them. Tell me about the perfume woman, the shoe salesman who kneeled, the elevator operator who announced the floors, the kid at Orange Julius who made your drink while you watched, the woman who wrapped your Christmas present so perfectly you did not want to open it. And tell me which smell you remember first when you close your eyes and think about the mall. Was it the caramel or the pretzels or the oranges? I want to know. I read every single comment.